Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rugged glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You probably know that every year on November 11th, Americans celebrate Veterans Day to honor the millions of men and women who have served or are serving in the nation's armed forces. But bet you didn't know the whole story behind the holiday. For starters, it wasn't originally called Veterans Day, but Armistice Day, to commemorate the truce signed between the Allies and Germany in World War I on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. The first Armistice Day in the U.S. was celebrated on November 11th, 1919. All business was suspended for 2 minutes starting at 11 a.m., and parades and public gatherings were held to commemorate the occasion. Later, America also began honoring its unknown soldiers on Armistice Day, a tradition that continues today. At 11 a.m. every Veterans Day, a color guard ceremony represents all branches of the military at the Tomb of the Unknowns in Arlington National Cemetery. In 1954, the name was changed to Veterans Day, following a national campaign to have the day honor all veterans, not just those who served in World War I. And did you know, for 7 years, Veterans Day was actually celebrated in October? In 1968, Congress moved Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October so that government employees could enjoy a long weekend. But in 1975, President Gerald Ford returned Veterans Day to November 11th due to the historical significance. And that's where it sits on the calendar today. And do you know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day? Both of them honor those men and women who have served in the military, but Memorial Day honors America's war dead, while Veterans Day honors all American veterans, living and dead. The U.S. Census Bureau estimates that there are currently over 21 million living military veterans in the United States. More than 16 million of these served during times of war, while 5.5 million served during peacetime only. So this Veterans Day, don't forget to say thanks to some of the millions of men and women who have served our country.
About 25 years. I enlisted in 1987 in the Guard. I was actually a grad student when I did. Kind of old at 25. I was the second oldest guy going through my basic training unit. But so 25 years, yeah.
It's okay. Like, I mean, I'm used to it by now, but not seeing him for a while was kind of hard, and like having him to go away a lot, it's kind of tough.
We were activated in 2006, January of, and we returned April of 2007, and then you have a 2-month rollover. So really, it was about 16 months gone. I hate to say it, but you compartmentalize a lot of it because there's a lot of times that you really have to focus just the task at hand, right? And then you get the downtime, and then that's kind of when you think about the family and miss the family, right? So I think the emotions get heightened because I can worry about family between this hour and this hour, but then all of a sudden now I have to be back and focusing on my task at hand because, I mean, face it, it's pretty intense sometimes as far as that. Getting to talk to them, in snippets. I get on the phone and maybe I have 15, 20 minutes that I can talk, so I get to talk to her for, hi, how you doing, what's up, this, that. My wife was good about emailing me and sending me stuff, but, it's kind of hard. I remember very intensely coming home on leave for my 2 weeks, and it's funny, I don't remember a lot of the return. I remember getting off the plane and seeing my wife, and I remember my daughter getting off the bus from school. I mean, those were the two things that really stick out.
At first, I mean, I was kind of little, so I really didn't understand like what was going on. But I remember mostly getting nightmares. I had like really, really bad nightmares about my dad being gone, and like I remember crying into bed with my mom, and I was like 6 or something, like just bawling my eyes out about him. And yeah, I remember when you came home, that was like the best, because I remember getting off the bus and I saw my brother in the doorway, and he just had this like look on his face, and I was like, "What are you looking at me like that for? Like, what are you doing?" And then I turned around and I saw him, and that was really cool. It was awesome, like spending time with him, at least being able to see him, because I know some people can't even see like any of their family for that much of time, like they're not at home. So I was just grateful that I got to see him for that time. And I guess going back, it was just the same as him leaving. It was really hard.
It was difficult. Even you want to you want it to last longer, but my leave was towards the end of the deployment. So I think I came home. I want to say it was later January, February timeframe. I was like one of the last 2 or 3 people to get to come home, and then we would turn around back in April. So I knew I was only going to be back in country for 2, 3 more months afterwards. But it really had been about a year since I'd seen them at all.
Kind of. I want to say kind of, because I remember my 2nd grade teacher talked to me. She came up to me, she's like, "Abby, if you never need a hug or anything, like come see me." And I was like, "Oh, well, like that's weird." Like I didn't understand that he'd be gone for like that amount of time. But like I remember him taking me to a churro, and he like explained it to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
He like explained to me that he was leaving, and I still didn't really get like the full concept of it. But my mom just said that he was going to help people in Afghanistan. Yeah, I thought of that, but like, I think, well, it could never happen to me. Like, I'm just realizing now that I almost did lose him at one point, and I don't know what I would have done.
It was up at Bradley. Our battalion flew in initially to Fort Bragg, and they keep you there for about a week and a half. You do inventory, you get your stuff. They run you through kind of a steam off portion where they decompress you, right? Rather than turn you right back, because I mean you're kind of amped up. They prep you for the return home, and then I remember we got on 2 aircraft, and our battalion flew into Bradley. And as we flew into Bradley, you could look out the windows, and you could see everybody there waiting, banners and the whole 9 yards.
And you were there?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're there with your mom, your brother?
My whole family came. It was my grandma, my cousins, my uncle, mostly my mom's side of the family, and me and my brother.
All right, so let's try to relive that moment.
It was awesome. It was just seeing the 2 planes come in and like literally floods of just men in uniform came off. Like I think we were waiting there definitely for a good 15 minutes because like everyone has to like try to find their way, try to find their family, and then finally my brother saw him first, ran up to him, and then I was right behind him.
Yeah, you know, because when you go away, time stops. You know, you expect that the little kid is going to still be there and to be able to turn the time switch back on. And getting off the plane, I'm coming through and I'm looking for my kids, and my eye is at the level that they would be, and then there they are, and your eyes come up. And, you know, that you realize what you miss time, and you don't get the time back. I think if I could change anything, it would be to get the time back. I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it does bother me, but it doesn't really affect me in any way. Like, I know he's here now. It's just that one chunk of childhood was like, can't get it back with your dad. And like missing birthdays and stuff was definitely hard. Missing birthdays, Christmas, I remember that Christmas.
And what was that like? That must have been awkward, to say the least, right?
Well, we had all of our family there to support us, but I know my mom was definitely feeling it at that time too. Like I remember we went to a New Year's Eve party, and I was like, "Come on, Mom, like let's dance." And like she got really upset because Dad wasn't there to dance with her. Like all the couples were dancing, and she didn't have anyone to dance with.
Well, I've always, you know, talked about the priorities and the example, you know, God, country, family, school, which for me is work, and then sports. So you try to keep it into that perspective as much as you possibly can and work off of that model. And it all seems to kind of work. I mean, sometimes, you know, this has got to give a little bit for the other, but, you know, family and country, you know, definitely come before everything else.
Well, I think it's important. I'm kind of glad that we have school now, because at one point didn't we not have school?
Yeah, we used
Well,
to have school. Yeah.
I think people kind of take advantage of it sometimes. It's just like a day of school off, like get to party, like Memorial Day, other holidays like that. So, I mean, I think Veterans Day is good for kids to like know, because like once you have like, I don't know, once you have like a dad in the military, for me, it's like you actually get the full feel of it, like rather than seeing stuff on TV and just getting the feeling from there, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. But when you say the full feeling, because I know that you're saying like it's personal for you. So what makes it especially personal?
Just the emotions that go into it, like having your dad away for that long was really hard, like emotionally. And I don't know, I guess that's just it.
I come from, you know, a family of veterans. So, you know, obviously I think about, you know, my dad on that point. He was, you know, KIA, Vietnam. I I think about my grandfather who was, military. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of it's hard to explain. Like she said, there's a closeness to it, and then obviously you think about, your friends and comrades and that you served with and or are serving with. I mean, it's a lot, as far as I'm concerned. And I like to see the old veterans when they come back. When they were in this school, and they're talking about eating monkey meat in Burma, and their stories are pretty incredible. I find that to me is very inspiring.
When I look into your eyes, it's like watching the night sky, or a beautiful sunrise. Well, there's so much they hold, and just like them old stars, I see that you've come so far to be right where you are. How old is your soul? Well, I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up when you're needing your space to do some navigating. I'll be here patiently waiting to see what you find. Even the stars, they burn. Some even fall to the earth. We got a lot to learn. God knows we're worth it. No, I won't give up. I don't want to be someone who walks away so easily. I'm here to stay and make the difference that I can make. Our differences, they do a lot to teach us how to use the tools and gifts we got here. We got a lot at stake. And in the end, you're still my friend. At least we did intend for us to work. We didn't break, we didn't burn. We had to learn how to bend without the world caving in. I had to learn what I got and what I'm not, and who I am. I won't give up on us, even if the skies get rough. I'm giving you all my love. I'm still looking up, still looking up. Well, I won't give up on us. God knows I'm tough.
Hey! Hey! Hi! Hey, buddy! Hi there! Hi!
Oh my goodness.
Let's just say I can never get them without a treat.
Daddy's home.
Do you not recognize me?
Oh.
Maggie! Maggie! Hi! 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 Yes! Hey, Herbie!
What you doing, girl? Hi. Hi.
Who's that? Is that Daddy? Is that Daddy?
Oh.
She whined a little. Is that your daddy?
Oh. Oh, she is so happy you're home. Oh.
You're all groomed. Oh, and back. Oh, he is.
Good doctor, darling. Yeah. Good doctor. Hi.
Who is that?
Hi.
Who is that?
Hey, Asher.
Who is that?
Hey. Hey. Hi, buddy. Hey.
Asher, who is that? Is that Daddy?
Hey, Asher.
Is that Dad? You're so excited. You're so excited.
Come here. Come here. Oh.
I miss you.
Aw.
Yeah. You happy too? Yeah, happy. Is that Daddy?
Hey, buddy.
Oh, it's Daddy.
Carl, get in. It's your daddy. Go. Anybody want to come up? I know we ain't sleeping, boy. Attention on deck.
Whatever you do, don't move.
How was school today?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah. Teachers so far, not so much.
Logan and his uncle have a bond, and that dry sense of humor runs in the family. It's just one of the things passed down in the Kettle family. But at 9 years old, Logan also knows about loyalty.
You follow someone's footsteps.
And honor.
Word of pride.
There's a reason.
Rangers lead the way. This must have been either whenever he joined the Rangers or whenever after he got killed. Just to remember this moment.
Logan was only 15 months old when his dad, Jeff, a Green Beret, died in combat. This is a photo taken just hours before he was killed.
He was on a mission to go and hunt for bad guys. That's kind of what his team did. And they were...
Ran over a landmine, right?
Yeah. They were going through a dry riverbed, and they had their vehicles spaced out about 50 meters apart. And his vehicle drove over a massive buried IED.
The family buried Jeff at Arlington Cemetery, the resting place of heroes. Logan was a baby. He was there.
It's been really tough. Like, I don't know what it's like to have a dad, and like everyone else in my class has a dad, and like their dads are so great, and I bet mine was greater, but I couldn't have spent time with him.
There is one thing Logan wishes he had: his dad's dress uniform jacket. Somehow, in the days after his dad's death, it disappeared 8 years ago. Clay Kettle has made it his mission to keep his brother's memory alive. He had to do something.
When I was in school, I always wore my dad's Air Force jacket. It was very important to me.
So Clay used his brother's service record, the picture of the uniform, and painstakingly tried to recreate that jacket for his nephew.
The hardest part was the Tunisian jump wings.
Finally, through a Facebook post, an old classmate found the wings on eBay.
Wow.
After months of piecing it together, Clay presented the jacket to Logan at the family's home in College Station.
I bet this looks exactly like the one I haven't seen yet.
It does. I promise you, he died doing what he loves.
Wow.
Seeing the replica of the uniform jacket brought tears to his mother's eyes.
Yeah, I'm sure they would have been best friends.
Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal.
Clay Kettle is now medically retired after himself being injured by a roadside bomb.
I have a hard time remembering what that one is.
His brother is one of more than 2,000 service members killed in Afghanistan, the only one from his hometown of Texas City.
Can I, take out this hanger and see, put this on?
I think that's what everybody wants to see, believe it or not. Button it?
Yeah, sure. Shoulder blades.
It was an unforgettable moment for his grandma, too.
He was the best dad. He loved him a lot.
I mean, if he wasn't in this world, we wouldn't be standing here today.
Him and men like him.
Logan's uncle still holds out hope of finding the real jacket. But in the meantime, there is comfort in knowing his nephew has the next best thing: along with mementos to honor a hero.
My dad was a true hero.
His dad.
So yeah, they're in terrible conflict because their values are essentially humane, but the actions that they're called upon to perform aren't, and that is an irresolvable kind of conflict. You know, it puts you at war with others, but it also kind of permanently puts you at war with yourself too. From my narrow perspective, I'm convinced that every single person coming back from the war has guilt. It is amazing the feelings you start to get about how you didn't do enough because you saw somebody sacrificing more.
They all feel guilty about something. And if they're real soldiers, that is infantrymen, they will have killed a lot of innocent people. And they know they have, and there's been no outlet for it.
There is no perfection in warfare. It's very messy, and one thing that you're trained for in the military is perfection. War is not about perfection. It's about a bloody, ugly mess. And so in the midst of this world where you're supposed to sort of constantly achieve perfection, you can't. And I think that breeds guilt and regret and second-guessing, you know, one's actions.
To me, the war on TV seemed very antiseptic. We were always saying, this isn't right, this isn't the way it is, this is not the way we see the war. So I just started writing what we were experiencing. What my crew saw was a very up-close, personal, human experience. That's all we did every day, is these battered human beings would come onto our plane, and we had to take care of them.
Our patient load is 11, 7, and 2, and a duty passenger. That means 11 litter patients, 7 walking wounded, and 2 attendants. Some can take care of themselves, some need lots of help. All have been waiting for us for a long time and need pain medicine and antibiotics. The patients include gunshot wound to the stomach, partial amputations from a landmine, open fractures secondary to gunshot wound, head injury struck by a tank, blast injuries, shrapnel injuries, and dislocations. The patients are mainly from the Marines and the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles. Many were involved in ambushes. One trooper confides in me that he witnessed some Iraqi children get run over by a convoy. He was in the convoy and they had strict orders not to stop. If a vehicle stops, it is isolated and an inviting target for a rocket-propelled grenade. He tells me that some women and children have been forced out into the road to break up the convoys so that the Iraqi irregulars can get a clear shot. But the convoys do not stop. He tells me that dealing with that image is worse than the pain of his injury. I've noticed that the most seriously injured are the youngest. The older, experienced soldiers do a better job of staying alive and avoiding the flying metal. One soldier I'm treating looks like a young boy. We talk for a bit as I assess him and medicate him for his pain. The morphine's not working, but it's the strongest stuff I've got. At some point during these adjustments, I accidentally dislodge a Hemovac suction unit from one of his infected wounds. Foul-smelling, reddish, yellow fluid drains from the tube and drips off the litter. I start looking at his bandages to find the other end of the tubing. I open one bandage and find sand fleas where his toes used to be. I try my best to keep a straight face, but the sight nauseates me. Scott, one of my level-headed medics, finds the tubing and resets the suction, then cleans up the mess I made. We finally get this soldier comfortable. Because we moved him so much, I decide to reassess his extremities. I know there are parts of his leg and thigh missing from reading his medical record. But I can't tell from the thick bandages. The wounds were left open to allow them to drain. The dressings are wet and covered in a light layer of sand. I asked the soldier to wiggle the toes he has. On one side, his toes move fine. On the other side, there is no movement. What is left on that side is cold and hard to the touch. He looks at me, and our eyes are locked. His eyes say, "Tell me I'm going to be okay. Tell me that I'm going to be fine. Tell me I'm going to be whole again." These are some of the longest seconds of my life because I know he's counting on what I say to him. I bend down below the litter to break eye contact. I act like I'm adjusting some of the medical equipment attached to him. My mind is racing. I've always been honest with my patients. Do I lie or tell him the truth? The seconds move so slowly as I fight my internal battle on what is right. I stand straight up, and there are his eyes. I'm at the end of the litter, and with the noise of the plane, there's no way he could hear me speak. We are now communicating solely with our eyes and facial expressions. I'm sure less than 2 seconds passed before I give him a big smile and a thumbs up. Those 2 seconds felt like an hour. He broke into a big smile of relief, and I felt broken for lying to him. He motioned to me, and I walked to the head of the litter. I leaned in so he could yell into my ear over the jet noise. "Why do my feet feel so cold?" he asked. I yelled back. "There's a lot of swelling in your feet, and the blood circulation is not so good because the swelling is way too early in the game to tell how well you're going to heal. Swelling is going to affect your senses and ability to move." These were all true statements. I felt reassured with my answer. It is too early to say how this soldier will recover, but I still felt bad about lying. What does the future hold for these men who go home to their families mentally and physically different? And what of the critically injured, who have a long future of VA hospital followed by VA disability? How do they cope? How do they adjust? I feel obligated to stay out here and take care of the wounded. I want to do all I can to help them.
I can't think of anyone I've met that's been wounded that is patched up and boom, yeah, okay, well, he was wounded, but he'll be okay. All right, wounded, you lost your leg, you lost your arm. Even if it's a wound that heals completely and you return to duty, that memory of someone shooting you or getting hit by shrapnel, that sticks with you the rest of your life. It changes you for the rest of your life.